This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's go ahead with the for loop and do while loop and for loop and for each. See that. So I'll create a new project again. I'll just call this as call it as so this will be session number. Let's start the for. Okay, let's look for the do while loop first. Then you get for the for loop because it's a for loop. Understand it. So for loop syntax. We'll see that first. Syntax is something like this. You have the for and then you have the body of for. And this will have the initial value. That is the initial statement you can see. And then we have a column, the conditional statement. We have the column, the increment or decrement. So these are the parts of the initial statement, conditional statement, increment or decrement statement, and generally we'll use the for loop as per the part. For loop is used. You know, the number of loops required. When we know the number of loops required to create a program. So definitely it is less prone to go towards infinite looping. So it is less prone to go towards infinite looping. That is what it means. But I'm not saying that it will not go for finite looping. It is less prone to go towards infinite looping. That's what I'm writing down. Okay, and as we understand it, third part, the first loop will happen. The first loop or any subsequent loop will happen if the conditional statement gives Boolean true. Okay, let's go to the working behavior of it. And the first thing is that for the first loop, this is for the first loop, a Roman one. Uh, the initial value will be checked condition. And if the Boolean condition is true, then the body of for loop will be executed. And if the conditional statement throws Boolean false, then the body of for loop will be ignored by the compiler. And point number two is Roman 2. This is, I can put this as B. For other loops, now defined Roman 1. For other loops, first the increment or decrement will come into force. And the incremented or decremented value is checked with Boolean condition. If the Boolean condition is true, so the body of for loop will be executed. If the Boolean condition is false, then the body of for loop will be ignored by the compiler. That is how it works. Simple and straightforward. So basically, for the first loop to happen, the initial statement is checked with the condition. The condition is true, the body of for loop will get executed. This is called the body of for loop. Okay. If the conditional statement gives you a Boolean false, when you consider it with the initial statement, then the body of for loop will be ignored. For subsequent loops, for second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever loops that you want to run, first the increment statement or the decrement statement will come into force. The incremented decremented value will be checked with the conditional statement. If it is true, the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth loop will happen. At any point of time after incrementation or decrementation, the condition conditional statement gives you a Boolean false, that second loop or the third loop or the fourth loop or the next loop will cease to exist. It will not happen. That is how the for loop works. So we'll see certain programs out of it. Just give me 1 minute. I'll come with some water. Okay, so let's see some examples of this. I'll go with the same examples that we have defined with the while loop. Now, let's take this particular example first of all. Now, why I'm basically considering the same example because of the fact that you will see the how many lines of code are there for while and for. So let's say the program of to print out for 1.1. Copy this. Done the one. This will not infinite looping, but I'll still show you infinite looping with for loop. So I know that if I have to print out for 1 to 5, it has to loop in for 5 times. Under this situation, if you take a decision whether to take for while loop or whether to go for for loop, obviously we'll go for a for loop because we don't have a condition. So let's say for initial value, so it's an integer a, the initial value is 1 because I have to print out 1. But the initial value, the condition is that they should convert it to 5. And integer to console. Now you can understand one particular thing that for the first loop to happen, the initial value will be checked with the condition. How is the initial value for the first loop to happen? Initial value is 1, so 1 is checked with the condition. 1 is checked with the condition. Other equal to 5, there it is 2, and basically it will talk. Now for subsequent loop, whether it is second, third, or fourth, or fifth loop, the incremented value will be checked with the condition. So what is the incremental value? 2. First incrementation or decrementation will happen to 2. Now this 2 will be checked with the condition. It's 2 less than equal to 5. The condition still remains 2, so we print out the second loop has happened. For the third loop to happen, first the value of a, right now it is 2. The value of a will be checked with the condition. Value of a is incremented from 2 to 3 because of this incrementation. Now 3 is checked with the condition. Let's check that with 3 less than equal to 5. The condition is 2, so we print out third loop. Now for the fourth loop to happen, first the implementation will come into force. The implementation will be nothing but the implementation of the value of the variable a, which will be equal to 4, and 4 will be checked with the condition. 4 less than equal to 5. The condition is true, so the fourth loop will happen. It will be 4. For the fifth loop to happen, the implementation will come into force. The implemented value will be 5. 5 will be checked with the condition. 5 plus 1 equal to 5. Condition is true, so it will happen the fifth time. The fifth loop will take. After that, the implementation will happen again. So 6 is checked with the condition. This is where the condition becomes false and the for loop terminates. So you have to understand one particular thing, that there has to be synchronization in the logics that you define for the for loop to arrive at the desired result, and plus you have to see a situation that when you get the desired result, the for loop terminates. So there should be synchronization between the initial statement, the conditional statement, and the implementation of decremented. Generally, this implemented or decremented value is defined in the body for a while, for a while loop condition. Okay, now let's look at this. Now I will basically take this program only and I'll show you. Let's run this particular program. So you're getting the value of 51. Right? So let's go and show you the same program. How will you get uh, uh, for loop is less prone to go for infinite looping because we know it is using for loop because we know how many loops it is. But still, I will show you a situation in which you will get still the same thing, the same infinite problem. I said that it is less prone to go towards infinity because there is no ambiguity that how many loops does not do not of infinite. But even we show you that you have a differentiation of this. I will just copy this part. I will take that. This is the working behavior as a human. Here the curly brace is this is called the opening curly brace, this is the closing curly brace, so this is called as the body of the for loop. If you don't understand the body of the for loop, just put your cursor out here. You will see that a very hazy ash color comes for the closing for loop. It's a very hazy ash color. You see. Now, for example, I do not know where is the name ending. This is the where is the namespace ending. You put your cursor out here. Let's click over this. You will see a very ash color is actually surrounding the opening curly brace. So if you scroll down, you will see ash color out here. That is one way. If you are not understanding that way, also you will see this. This is the namespace. Okay. So namespace has inside class. Where is the class ending? You do not know. You can just do this. This is the class. Where it is ending. This is the beginning of the class. So put your cursor and click over it. You will see a very light ash colors and at the background. And you scroll down, you will see the same light ash color. And you can see the dotted lines also to make you understand that it is basically the class. You hover your mouse over it, you will see namespace inside the namespace of the class. If you hover your mouse over this dotted line, you will see it is a new namespace. This is not the hierarchy. Inside the namespace, you have class. Class is a form. Inside the class, you will see that put your cursor out here with the dotted line. Namespace class and then the main. And there's a dotted line here too. You can see namespace class, main method. Inside the main method, you have the form. This is how you can see the hierarchy also. if the hierarchy is perfectly created. Now, for example, I missed this particular this closing curly brace, and you put your cursor out here. The class on static is showing. It is not showing the namespace. The whole hierarchy should be shown. So you put the brace out here. For example, you put your cursor again. Now you see the namespace is coming. Inside it the class, inside it the name. If I remove it and put your cursor over this dotted part, you see namespace is not there. So you should get this complete hierarchy as you move down, as you move inside. This is what I'm trying to say. That is how you will understand if the body parts have been created properly or not. Okay, let's go forward. I'll create an infinite loop. I'll say that A is greater than 0. At this point of time, what is going to happen? A is equal to 1 for the first loop to happen. So A will be greater than 0, so we print out 1. Fine. Okay, and then for the second loop to happen, A will become 2. We will be checked. The first loop will be checked with A is greater than 0. Second loop will be greater than 0. The condition becomes true. Then it is basically for the third loop, implementation will happen 3 is greater than 0. Again, 3 will be 0. For the fourth loop, the implementation will happen. The implemented value will be checked with the condition. The condition becomes true. This will keep on happening. It will be the infinite number of different. It's a typical situation in which the for loop can also be for infinite. This is what I'm This is a typical situation where you go for infinite. So if you run this, you will get an infinite. I have to stop it. By closing this. Okay, so this is a typical situation where infinite will happen. Okay. Uh, I will comment this because if I don't comment it, obviously I will not do the next line of execution of the other lines of code below the line number 49. But I will do a multi-line commenting. Multi-line commenting. Okay, let's go to another program. So this will be program number 3. Program number 3 I can pick it from here. If you want to, let's say, a decrement the value. To print out from 10 to 5, not infinite, decrementation. The first that we get is that can I use integer A? Can I use integer A? Integer A has been defined out here. I have always told you that variable names cannot be duplicated. Okay. Now variable names cannot be duplicated in the same scope. Okay. So there is a note out here stating that variable names should not be duplicated in the same scope. Variable names should not be duplicated in the same scope. Now what do you mean by this? Now for example, there is integer A out. Now can I declare integer A? I can declare it like this. Is it showing duplication with that underline? Why? And I can use a for loop. Now I have to give the for loop, and this is the initial value of the for loop should be 10 because I want to print out from 10 to 5. So A is equal to 10, this is the initial value, and A should be the condition. A should be greater than equal to 5. So 10 is greater than equal to 5. And obviously decrementation to the management. And then you have the for loop body. Now the question is that why this A, which is duplicated out here, is not showing a value. Here it is not showing a value, but here it is showing a value. Why? And you hover your mouse into a local or a parameter and then it cannot be declared in the scope because that name is used in the enclosing local scope. Now this A, where have you declared it? What is the scope of this A? Now understand the scope. Scope means usage of this A is within the main method. If you look at this is the main method. This is the main method body. This is your main method body, which is ending out here. Now, have you declared integer A within the main method body? The scope usage of this A is within the main method body. As variable A is declared in the main method body. So, within the same scope, within this main method body, we cannot duplicate it. Duplicate the variable name A. Okay. The scope of this is within the main method body. So if the scope of this variable A is within the main method body, you can't duplicate the variable name within the main method body. Here I have duplicated because this is inside the for loop. The scope of this variable A is inside the for loop. But this for loop is present inside the main method. So within the main method body, you can't duplicate the variable A. As this declaration is within the main method body, immediately this integer A is showing a syntax error. If I comment this line of code, what will happen? Do you see the red underline? Why? Because this integer A scope is within the for block or for loop, whatever it is, for loop, and not inside the main method. Yeah, the for block, yes, the for block is inside main method. But as far as the scoping of this variable is concerned, the scoping of this variable A, where it is defined, where it is declared inside the for block. Okay, so if I am putting it inside the for block, the scoping is inside the for block only. But the for block is present inside the main. That is why, for example, if I put integer A here also, I will not have any problems. You can see that the same integer is inside the for block. Here also integer is inside the for block. Now, why this doesn't show you a duplication? Simple reason. The scope of this integer A is within the for block. That means you should not duplicate this integer variable A, that is a variable name A, within the body of the for block. You can't duplicate it out here, but you can put it for this for block because this variable A is within the scope of this for block. You should not duplicate integer variable A name inside the body of this for block. So that is the scope. So limitation of this A ceases to exist when the for block body is closed. Similarly, this variable A can be duplicated as far as this for block is concerned because for the earlier for block, the usage of variable A dies down out here. You should not duplicate it within this. And the restriction basically is within the for block body. Okay. So the restriction ends out here, so that is why I can use the integer a again out here, because the usage or the scope of this variable a is within the for block body. So there's no problem. But let's say I define this variable a out here and leave it like this. Okay. Then this is declared when? Where is this declared? Inside the main method. Inside the main method, there's a for block also. So that means now the scope of this variable a is within the main method body. So within this main method body, you should not duplicate variable a, which you have duplicated out here. That is why if you put your cursor, you will see a local or parameter named a cannot be declared in the same scope. And similarly, you have duplicated out here. So this scoping has to be understood. Okay. Similarly, if instead of declaring out here, I declare it here, and I just initialize the value of this variable, where I am declaring inside the main method, and for blocks are also inside the main method. So if I am declaring now inside the main method, the scope is within the main method body. So within that scope, you should not duplicate it. I have duplicated here. That is why duplication is coming. If I comment it, what's going to happen? Each of these for block have their respective scopes defined. And since each of the for block have the respective scope defined, integer a out here and integer a out here will not have any problem, because the scope is limited to this, the usage is limited to this, and you should not duplicate the variable name a inside this for block body. Similarly, the scope of this variable a is limited to this scope body. You should not duplicate it within the for block. But the moment I declare integer a as part of the method body, main method body, the scope increases. So within this, now within the method body, main method body, you should not duplicate the variable name. And since you have duplicated it out here or here, you will see syntax problems. This scoping is very much important to understand. Okay. At this point of time, I will just comment it. And I've commented this also. Let me call this as, yeah, let me put this out here. You will see a variable problem cropping out here. Here I can declare the variable as 10. You will see the variable problem out here. I'll make this so that the problem of duplication is gone. Now, why I'm putting as B? Simple reason. Now the scope of this integer a is within the main method. You cannot duplicate the variable name a within the main method. You have duplicated it out here for a change. So you got to basically understand the scoping very, very carefully, and that is why I'm putting it up. Okay, now this scoping of integer a is within the main method body, so you should not duplicate the variable name a within this main method. Now let's go forward. I'll have to just write down console dot write here. Now I'll just print out that the value of the variable a. This should decrement the value. Now how is the first loop going to happen? A is equal to 10. For the first loop to happen, the conditional statement, the initial statement is checked with the condition. So something like is 10 greater than equal to 5, the condition is 2, so we print out the first loop will happen, print out 10. For second loop to happen, first the decrementation will happen, equal to 9. 9 is checked with the condition. It is equal to 5 or not, the condition is 2, so we print out. Then again, the third loop to happen, decrementation of A will be to 8. So 8 is 8 greater than equal to And then further decrementation will happen. 8 to 7. 7 is check with the condition. Check the condition. Condition is true. The fourth loop will happen. We print out 7. And then for the fifth loop to happen, they decrement it to 6. 6 is equal to check. Fifth loop will print out 6. And then for the sixth loop to happen, the decrementation happens to 5. 5 is equal to 5. The condition is still true. Sixth loop will happen to 5. For the seventh loop to happen, the decrementation happens to 4 and 4 is true. So if the condition becomes false, the problem becomes what? Z to 5 is printed out. Okay. So if you look at the number of codes in comparison to while loop for the decrementation part, you can see that 10 to 1. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 lines of code compared to for loop 1, 2, 3 lines of code. It decreases the number of code, obviously. Let's go to the next program. So we have basically created a program to print out now the even number. Print out even number. Do that. So even number means what? We have to divide by 2 and the remainder should be 0. So you divide by 2 and the remainder will be 0. So let's do that. So I may choose to initialize the variable inside the main method. If I initialize a variable inside the main method, not initialize, I declare the variable inside the main method, you should not duplicate the variable name inside the main method. I may choose to initialize, declare the variable inside the for loop. Then the scope is within the for. Since the scope is within the for loop, I can have the same variable name outside of the for block as part of the main method. So for I will check out the print out even numbers between 100 and 1. Decreasing order, even numbers are created. I can declare the variable as the scoping of this variable inside the, let's say, the for loop. So I will put this as C. Then the C is equal to 1. C minus. Now, for the first loop to happen, what will be checked? The initial value checked with the condition. So it's 100 greater than equal to 1. If it is true, immediately the body of for loop will come into existence. So I don't want to print out the value of 6. I don't want to do that. I want to basically check that the 100 is now is an even number. I'll have a if statement. If statement that says that C, that is 100 percentage. equality to 0 or not. It means this will divide 100 by 2 and the remainder is 0. So the remainder is 0, which is equal to equality to 0. Then you should print out that. So, outline. So do that. C, whatever is the number. The cardinal. Now I don't have to decrement the value of C because for the second loop to happen, the decrementation will happen out. This will be decremented to 99, and 99 is checked with the condition is greater than equal to 1. The condition is true. So it will divide 99 by 2. Is the remainder 0? Remainder is not 0. It will be some number which is equal to the value of 0? No. If it is not equal to the value of 0, obviously the if block will be not executed by the compiler. It will be ignored by the compiler. Then it will be decremented to 98. 98 is greater than equal to 1. Yes, it is true. So 98 will be divided by 2 and the remainder is 0. 0 at this side of the equality sign is equal to 0 at the right hand side of equality. The condition becomes true. So you print out that 98 is a remainder. You can also compare the number of codes compared to while loop. Obviously, yes. Let's run this loop. You can see that from 100 to 2, all are even numbers. All the odd numbers are also not being shown. Okay. Remember one thing as a note. The argument of y. This is called the argument of y. If you have forgotten it. Can take a function also, but the function should return a Boolean result. So this argument of while can take Boolean condition also, can take a function also. The function should return a Boolean result. At this point of time, we are learning for the first time. This is the confusing statement. So I'm not going to put any codes for it because I don't want to confuse you unless I show you functions. Okay. And as a note also, I can give one particular thing that the body of for can take functions which can return any value. If you look at this is the difference between these two sentences. The argument of while can take a function, but the function should return a Boolean. Why, if I call a function inside this, why it should return a Boolean result? Because the argument has to throw out Boolean true or Boolean false. So the function that I am using out here should throw out Boolean true or Boolean false. Otherwise, the while loop will not work. Let's now consider the for loop. Now, why the for loop body can have function which can return any value? Because this is not the argument of for. The argument of for is having three different arguments. This is the parenthesis of for which has three different arguments. Here I cannot put functions. That is why I said that the body of the for loop can take any function and which can return any value. It is not constrained that the function inside the for loop body should return a Boolean. No, it can take any function which can return any value. Any value means it can be a Boolean value, it can be an integer value, float value, it can be a double value, it can be a decimal value, it can be a void value. Void is these are nothing but return any value. Returning, you can return a void also, and etc. So, so when you use a function, you can use a function as a while argument, but the function should return a boolean value because the argument will only take boolean results. Otherwise, the function that you use should return a boolean value. Now, the argument of for cannot use a function, but the body of for can use a function, and that function can return any value. Any values can be all these. This is for your reference because this will come later on. You use in C functions, how to create functions, and how do you create and call functions inside the one argument? How do you use functions inside the for body? Okay, that's what is the understanding of the for loop. Let's go to do while loop right now. Okay, so you have to create a new program. Rename the C# file to for loop. Change. This is the app configuration file. You can see this is XML file. App. XML file has the configuration. This is the startup tag, which contains the supported runtime version 1.0. The software unit is .NET. And if you look at the reference part of it, every project has a reference. The reference part will refer all these are nothing but the packages. The packages that you see out here installed by default. Using system connection, using system text, using system tasks, and nothing but you're actually imported the packages. And these packages are actually seen in the reference. Okay, then now let's create a new item. Okay, I've shown you how to create an extra C# file always. Now you can have only one entry point in a project. Now if you look at these, each C# file has their own entry points. If you want to use the entry point out here, there is the main method out here, you are commenting the main method in this C# file. That is what you have done. If you want to use the main method in the program.C# file, then you have to comment the main method out here because of the fact that you can have only one entry point in the project. That is what I have shown you. Now, I will not create a extra C# file because it's ways to create it. What I can do is that this namespace can have multiple class files. So in the same namespace, which is this is the class file ending. You can see that this is the class ending. After that, the namespace is out. Our namespace can have multiple classes. So create a public class. I'll call this as while loop class. Okay. In the same manner, I'm creating it. Then we will have the body part of this particular class. Okay. Remember, the entry point should be same. It should be only one entry point in the whole project. Now, I made this public. What is the meaning of public? Public means it can be used anywhere. Just understand at this point of time, the security feature. Okay, security feature. It defines, I can say it defines it is called as access accessor, called as access modifier, sometimes called access specifier. In .NET we use accessor or access modifier. In Java we use access specifier. Give security features. So in other words, I can say we define the scope again of this of this. So in other so public is nothing but an access modifier or access specifier, whatever you want. Okay, it defines the scope of usage where you can use this particular class. So, so I make it public, that means anybody can use it. Public means anybody anybody can use it. So let's look at this. And then what is this? This does not contain any access specifier. This class does not contain any access. Where I'm using it in switch state. Using it switch state. Cut it out. So I want to use it one. Here I want to use. This is where the class is. You can create the class inside the same. Open it once more. Okay, so let's create another. So public means anybody can use it. Now, if you look at this class, for loop class, this doesn't have any access specifier. This does not have any access. specified. So if you do not see, if we do not see any access specifier for class, it is by default internal. You may choose to use the keyword internal, you may not choose to use it, but by default this class is internal. Okay, internal means again scoping. Internal is also a scope for usage or security. The internal is nothing but you can say scoping, or you can say usage, you can say security to this class. This is what it means. And now you can understand one particular behavior that internal is used what? Internal class can be used within the same space. I'm not saying that it can be used everywhere, which I have written down. Anybody can use it, I'm not saying. I'm saying internal can be used in the same way. As far as namespace is concerned, namespace can contain any number of classes. So all the classes which belong to the this namespace, all the classes which belongs to this namespace can use this class. If you look at this class, it is also basically a public class. This can be used anywhere. It is not restricted to only to this namespace. Okay. So now I can't have a main method inside this class because there is already a main method inside this class. Only simple entry. So what will I do? I have to show you now the what do you call the class for that. Do while and for this class do while loop class. First of all, working behavior. Now I can't have a main method inside this. I'm repeating this fact. There can be only one entry point, and the entry point is defined in this class. Let's do that. Understand? You can create a class like this. Okay. And but as I have told you, you need the main method, right? The main method has to be present so that the compiler understand where is the entry point and compile the code inside. But I can't have a main method in multiple classes of the same project. I have one entry point. So what I will do out here is first define the laws. So when do you use the do while loop? When we at least want to get the result of the first loop, we use the do while. Why? As because for the first loop to happen, no condition is true. If you compare it with your for and while loop, even the first loop will happen if the condition is Boolean. If it is Boolean true, the first loop will happen for while and for. It is this particular loop which says that at least you will get the result of the first loop because for the first loop no condition. From second leg for executing or before executing, I would say before executing second loop or subsequent loops, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay, the condition is checked. Which condition? The Boolean condition. That will be checked first. So I can say this is fault number 1. Put this as part. The condition, Boolean condition is checked first. If the same, we copy the same code. If the Boolean condition is true, if the Boolean condition is true, then the body of the do block will get executed. Do block, body of do block. If the condition is Boolean false, then the body of do block will be ignored by the X. So I'm saying not body of the for or do or why. I'm saying the body of the do block. So before executing the second loop or subsequent loop, the condition, Boolean condition is checked. If the Boolean condition is true, then the body of the block is true. If it is false, body of the block will be ignored. Okay. So let's look at this. One. Okay. Now, what is the syntax? The syntax here. If you look at the syntax, you will understand why the first loop will happen. Why we will get the result of the first loop? Because there is no condition is checked. So do the name of the body, then the body of the and immediately when the blue body ends, okay, it ended. We have to while and this is the argument of while the argument of while as we know it should give Boolean result. So for the first loop to happen, anyway the body of do will execute. The body of do will execute for the first loop. You will get the result of the first loop. And then the while comes with the argument. So when the first time the loop will happens, then the argument is checked. If the argument gives you a Boolean result of true, then the second loop will happen. So if the argument gives you Boolean false, the second loop will stop, will not happen. Now let's say the second loop has happened because the argument is true. Now after executing the second loop, again the argument will check if the Boolean result is true. If it is true, the third loop will happen. At any point of time, let's say the argument gives you Boolean false, the third loop will not execute. Okay, this is the syntax. The syntax will tell you how it works. And this is how it works. Okay. Now I can't have a main method inside this because you cannot have multiple input points in the same project. Let the main method be out here. Now, since the function has come, so what I can do is I create a function now. How do you create a function? I will stick to which stick right now. Stick with public function. Public will stick with public function, which is static and return type as void. Now, what is this public static? Public, I have told you. Public function will work same as a public class. The scope of this function is can be the scope of this public function can be it is nothing but it can be used anywhere. What is the static behavior of a function or a non-static behavior of a function? That I will tell you later on because that is concerned with proofs. What is the return type? Now, I told you earlier that here that return types can be boolean, integer, float, double decimal, void, etc. Can be long, whatever it is. Also, it can be character, it can be boolean, it can be string also. So I will stick to public static void function. The public means obviously you will understand it's like the same behavior as the public class. It's access specifier. Okay. Now I'll make it a static. Static is a keyword. It is also access modifier. Okay. What is the static and non-static? We'll see that later on because that is concerned with the object-oriented language. Right now I will make it a static and return type is what? It's the return type. The return types are defined out here. What the return types is called. And then we can define the name of this function. Call this function name. Say, example. Then a function name. This is a function name, and function name is always followed by a parenthesis. And then you have a body of the function. The same manner you have the main function. See, static void main. Public keyword is not used. This is the function name followed by a parenthesis. The parenthesis may have a parameter or may not have a parameter. That's right. I will not have any parameter. Let's create the body of the function. So do while loop. So program one for do while loop. First, I will show you at least printing of the result of first. This is what I want to show you first. So let's run this. We'll create it first. So, do, and then you have a body of do, and then you have a while. This is the argument. So let's say I want to this program at least. I'll display do the same thing. Print from let's say 10 to 9. Descending order. Descending order. So first of all, I have to give the initial value. Initial value will have the initial statement. The initial statement is let's say integer a is equal to 1. So the 10. Now you will ask me a question that integer a is already used out. Where it is used? Here it is used. But look at the scoping. The scoping of this integer is inside this main method. And where is the main method present? Inside this class. This class ends out here. This is the end of the class. So if the class ends out here and the main method ends out here, obviously what is happening? The scoping is within this main method. If the scoping is within the main method and the main method is inside this class, obviously this is another class containing another method. Example. So I can reuse this integer a out here because this scoping is now this scoping of this variable a inside the do block. That is why this is allowed. The scoping has to be understood. Okay, I can initialize it inside this classes, this example methods out here. I can declare. If I declare it out here, then I can't declare it out here because this scoping is now inside this example method. You cannot duplicate the variable name a inside this method. And where is this method present? In a different class. So you have to understand that particular part. But if I declare this variable a inside the do block, the scoping is only inside the do block. Okay. So I'll show you anyways this behavior. So integer a is equal to 10, and then you have to print out the value console dot write line. I'll print out a directly out here. I'll not write down any sentences. And then I have to increment the value. You have to increment the value. So a plus plus. And now let's go forward to understand what is happening. Integer a is equal to 10. So this will print out 10. This will increment, so this will have to decrement it because I have to print out from 10 to 1. This has to be decremented. So this decremented value will be equal to 9. So this value of a will be checked that it is greater than equal to 1 because I have to basically print out from a is greater than equal to 1 and 1. So at this line, obviously remember that compiler moves from left to right, top to down. At this point, the value of a in the memory is 9. So this will be a printout. This will be a condition to check if 9 is greater than equal to 1. Now, why this is showing you a syntax error? Because please understand, integer a is declared inside the do block. The scope is inside the do block. And this is a while outside of the do block. So the compiler is not understand what is this a. So if you look at, it will tell you the name a does not exist. If you see this syntax that does not exist means you have not declared what is a. Yes, I have declared a, but inside the do block. The scope is within the do block right now. Remember that. So the scope ends as the do block ends, and this while is outside of the do block. So that is why the compiler is not understanding what is this a, what type of data type it is holding. Whether it is a primitive data type variable, whether it is a object type variable, or strongly type or system type variable. So better instead of declaring the integer a inside the do block and making the scope small, I can do one particular thing. I can comment it. I can just declare the value of it and initialize a outside of the do block. When I initialize a outside of the do block out here, what is going to happen? The scope of integer a is in the main and within the example. So now, right now, the red underline has got because now it understands what is this a, what is this a, what is this a. Because the scope is now within the example body. The scope has increased for the variable. These kind of understanding has to be out there. So here 9 is greater than equal to 9. The condition is true. So it will go for the second loop. But what I want to show you, it is printing out the result of the first loop. If I want to show you the printout of the first loop, what should I do? I should make the condition back. So I'll say 9 is less than 1. Is 9 less than 1? Which is false. So if the Condition becomes Boolean false, second loop will cease to exist. So this is a typical example in which we'll at least get the result of the first loop. The result of the first loop that we printed out is where we use the print command. We'll get the result as 10. So let's run this. Now, if I run this, let's say this doesn't have a main method. Okay. So let me say that I want to print out from 1000 to 1. So here I will basically give the value of a equal to 1000. So I should basically print out 1000. And is 1000 should be decremented to 999. Is 999 less than 1? Now, this class doesn't have a main method. This class doesn't have a main method. So do you think the compiler will execute or compile these lines of code? Let's see that. Let's run it. Because if I run it and I see the result of 1000 getting printed out, that means it has compiled the code of this example function. And this function is a user-defined function because I have defined it. And this function comes by itself. This is a inbuilt function present in the .NET library. This function I have created. Inside which class? Inside the do while class. This is user defined. And this class doesn't have a main method. So since it doesn't have a main method, it will not compile these codes. So let's run this now. Check. Start. Hello? So let's run this. So am I getting, this is the result of the above class, the for loop class. Am I getting the value of 1000 anywhere out here? No. The reason is very simple because this class, which class? This is the class. It doesn't have any main method. You cannot have multiple entry points in the same project. So what do? I call the method of this class. How do I call the method of this class? Now please understand one thing. This is a static function. Static functions can be called with the class name. Now this class is public, I can use it anywhere. This method is public, I can use it anywhere. And by the way, this method is static. So as a note, I can tell you one thing, that static functions can be called with the class name. Note, static functions can be called with the class name. It can always be called with the class name. It is a static function. Check out these attributes. It's a static function. What is the function name? Example. So static function can be called with the class name. Next thing attribute, it's a public. Public is introduced anywhere. What about the class? The class is also public. So I can use this class anywhere. I can use this function anywhere. And by the way, this function is static. So I can call this function name with this class name. Where I have to call this function name? I have to call this function inside the main method. Then only what will happen? the body of this example method will be compiled and look at the result of it. So let's do that. How do you call it? So calling, I will write down here. This is the main method. And this is where the main method is ending. You can see this. So here I will write down here in bold letters, calling the example method of which class? Do while loop class. Why I'm calling inside the main method? Because it's an entry point. It will make the compiler understand that it has to go then to the body of the example and compile these codes and give the result. That is why you are calling inside this. Why you can call this particular class? Because this class is public. Why I can call this method? Because this method is public. So I can use it anywhere. And by the way, this method is static. So static methods can be called with the class. So call it. So how do you call it? Control space bar. Okay. Do you see do while? Write down do while loop. Do you see out here? This is the symbol for a class. Orange symbol you can see. This is a symbol for the do while loop. This is the class name. Dot. You can call the methods. Which is the method? Example method. Automatically this method name will come. It's a void do while loop. It's a void return type method belonging to the class called as do while loop dot example parenthesis. In tooltip you can see. They'll tell you to which class it belongs to. What is the return type of it? And it's a method, that is why it has a name example followed by a parenthesis. And methods are given this cube velvet color signal or mauve color symbol. Example, that since this is a method, put a parenthesis and put a terminator sign. Now what will happen? The compiler will start compiling from this line left to right, come down, left to right, compilation will happen. And ultimately the compiler will come to this line and move from left to right. Compiler understands by the name that it is a method because method have a name followed by a parenthesis. Immediately it understands it's a method looking at the name and the parenthesis. Immediately the compiler goes to the body of this particular method, compiles it and throws the result. That is what is happening. So I will write down here before this, I will write down a console statement so that you can understand. Console.writeline. I'll put some stars out here. I'll write down calling do while loop classes. So that in the console you will see this. You'll understand you're calling the do while loop classes. Example. So let's run this one. You can say calling do while loop class example. Do you get 1000? You get 1000 out. You can see that. Okay. Now why do you get 1000? Because for as I have told you, in a do while loop, the first loop will be executed because there are two condition check for the first loop. Before it executes the second loop or the third loop, then the condition is checked. So this is program number 1. Only printing out the result of the first loop. What I want to say. Now, will it go for infinite looping? Yes, it might go for infinite looping. How do I go? I'll have the same project. Now I cannot use the same variable because of now the scope of this variable inside the method. You cannot duplicate it. I'll call this as B. This is program number 2. I will show you that do while also goes. This is the printout from 100 to 1. That's fine. But what I want to show you is infinite loop. It is much more prone to go towards infinite looping in comparison to for. So how do I go for infinite looping? So let's say b is equal to 1000. And let's say I want to print out from 1 to 100. This is initial value is 1. So we print out b as 1. Clear cut code right. This will be printing out 1. And this will be incrementing. This will be incremented to 2. Now this 2 is checked for the condition. Condition fails, and only here also you will get the result of the malfunction. I don't want that. I want to show you infinite looping. So I'll say that b is greater than 0. So what I am doing? 2 is greater than 0. Obviously it is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, the condition becomes true. What will be printed out? The value of b is greater than 0. So we print out 2. Increment to 3. Increment it to 3. So instead of putting the initial statement out here, what I can do is I can also do it directly. You can just print out. So it will become 3. Now 3 will be checked with the condition. 3 is greater than 0. Yes, it is 0. Greater than 0. So you print out 3. And this will keep on happening until infinity. Because this is also keep on happening until infinity. And this will always now to compensate to show the differentiation between these two program results. I'll use control.writeLine. Now this is also part of the same example method, and I am calling the method with the class which I have already done it out. So we will see that it will print out the value of the first program as part of the example method. It will only print out 1000, and then you will see it will printing out infinite results. So let's run this. You can see. So I have to stop it like this. So I have to comment it because this has to be commented now. Otherwise, we have problems. So which is the correct here now? I'll have the same program, copy it down. Now I'm putting the same program number 3 in the example method only. I'm still inside the example method. So this is the, you can see the dash for the example. Inside the class dual of the namespace for loop. The namespace is same. You can have n number of classes inside the same namespace. So this will be program number 3. No infinite looping. Straightforward. You can copy this part. You can paste it. I will remove this particular behavior. Comment, will remove it. I'll make this as C because we cannot have the same variable declaration. Let it be B. Okay, because commented still is 1. This is a print out C. Increment the value of C. Here I have to do the correct. C should be less than equal to. I have to print out to 1 to 100. This will basically go until 2 is greater 2 is less than equal to 100. 3 is less than equal to 100. And 4 and 5 until it will basically print out 100 is less than. So for that the condition becomes true. So the 100 loop will happen. So it will print out 100. And then it will increment the value from, let's say, 100 to 101. And this 101 is checked out. 101 is less than equal to 100. This condition becomes false. The moment it becomes false, the do block will terminate. Now let's run this. Now I don't have to call the function again. Once I have called the function contains all these three programs. So I'll get the result of this. You will see that the result of this will be printed as 1000. Then you see the printout of this. Then you will see the printout again of this. And then you will see the printout of 120. Let's run this now. So I've already called that particular example method belonging to the class do while loop. And I will call a static function with the class name. And that note is given out here. Static function can be called with the class name. Copy this note from there and put it here also to get confused what is that. Example method of do while. So you see that first of all you got this printout. Why are you getting this printout? You are getting this printout because of this. Then the compiler encounters the example method of the do while class. It goes inside the body of the example. It encounters this program. So it will print out 1000. It prints out 1000. Then it encounters this star. It prints out that star. This is the one that I'm hovering my mouse. And then I've commented it. Then there's another group of stars. See another group of stars. And then it prints out the result from 1 to 100 for this, and that's what you get out. So that's how the do while loop works. We have seen a couple of things today. One is we have seen scoping of variables. We have seen the for loop. We have seen that a namespace can have multiple classes. Okay, we have seen that there can be only one entry point in the whole project. We have seen that how to create at least what is the meaning of public for a class, what is the meaning of public for a method, what is static. Static and void are not defined, but static is also an access specifier. Void is the return type. Now we've also seen that how to create a public static void return type function. We have seen how to create multiple classes in the same namespace. And if you have an inside a class, you can have we have seen the creation of the example method, the static method. How do you call a static method with the class name? And where do you have to call inside the menu? And we have seen programs of do while and for. This is where I'm stopping today. The next session, I would like to take up the concept of your arrays, moving forward to functions. And the agenda for the next week, I will set it out because I want to basically set out the agenda. It would be definitely functions, arrays, and then we have to move towards object-oriented programming. Any questions? No questions? So other Lakshmi, Nisarga, Hemlata, you don't have any questions to ask, right? Varsha? Because I am not able to hear you.
No
Okay,
question.
so other has no
questions.
questions. Fine, then I'll send you the session files and the videos. You can go through it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.